Hello and welcome to the Penalty Box Perspective podcast. My name's Nathaniel, and yes, I am joined once again by my good friend Matt. How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm great, mate. Thank you. Yeah, fresh off of the first NHL game broadcast on free to watch UK television yesterday. Great game, absolute banger. Can't wait to get into it. But yeah, all good on this, mate. All good on this end, even. Yeah, how are you?
No, likewise, I watched that full game though because I pay to watch hockey. I thought I can't watch the free-to-air version when I've paid for something elsewhere. But yeah, it was an absolute banger, and I can't wait to get into it because it involves one of our teams. But yeah, we'll get straight into it, shall we? We're actually going to start in a division I don't think we've started with for quite some time. We did that last week with the Atlantic, but this week we're going to start in the Pacific Division. First team in this division, out front, bit clear ahead of the rest, is the Vegas Golden Knights. They're on 60 points, 24, 11, and 12 record, plus 15, 3 games, 3 wins, though they did have to dig out 2 wins in overtime. What do you think about the Vegas Golden Knights this week?
Yeah, I think this is going to be the subject of this week's pod, I think, is that we are, for the first time this season, and I'm amazed it's taken this long, we're starting to see the gaps form throughout the divisions. You know, we're starting to see them all kind of start to spread out a touch. But, you know, we've kind of panned Vegas the last couple of weeks, haven't we, for, them just being indecisive about if they were going to be a good team or not. They've put together a couple of really strong weeks. Jack Eichel showing that form that he showed at the start of the season, a goal and 7 assists for him. Mark Stone as well, 3 goals and 3 assists. So glad I kept him in my fantasy team on injured reserve as opposed to sending him to the scrap heap, because he's been unbelievable since he's returned. So yeah, and even the likes of Keegan Colasar and Thomas Hurtle and Shea Theodore, all chipping in down the lineup with the points across the games. But they dug out those overtime wins. They now sit 4 points clear at the top of this division, and we've been waiting for them to show that authority, and we seem to have seen it the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, they've beaten some good teams during the week as well. The LA Kings, the Toronto Maple Leafs, and the Nashville Predators, all teams who aren't top tier this season, but all teams who can go on a bit of runs or can put a good game together, and they've been scoring plenty and plenty of goals. So though the goaltending hasn't been great, and that's always a topic of conversation, Hart's been out with an injury. So it's been Schmid who's been putting in the decent performances. Aiden Hill's come back and did okay. So we'll touch a bit more on him later. See where he comes to. But yeah, they've got games against the Flyers, Bruins, Maple Leafs, and Senators coming up. So the schedule's still fairly mid for them, I'd say. And like you said, they're 4 points clear of second place, 9 points ahead of the non-playoff places. So I think they're now starting to get a stronghold at the top of this division.
I think so. Yeah, I think you're right. They've got some kind of mid opponents coming up. I think the Maple Leafs will want a bit of revenge for that overtime loss for them, especially in their arena. So, but yeah, I think Vegas could put together a bit of form now and really kind of have a chokehold on this division.
Now, the second team remaining in second place is the Edmonton Oilers. I think Vegas and Edmonton were probably the shoo-ins at the start of the year for who was going to make the playoffs out of this division, and I think that's now coming to the fore of what's going on. Obviously, they're on 56 points, record of 24, 17, and 8 with a +7 plus minus. They've had a busy week playing 4 games in 6 days, essentially, since we last recorded. But they beat your Blackhawks 4-1. They then lost to the Predators in overtime, and then to the Islanders 1-0, getting shut out in a real barnstorming game there. But then they come out and comfortably beat the Canucks 6-0. So, again, a solid week, doing what they need to do to get to the playoffs.
Yeah, look, they've picked up 5 points from 8 available. Even it's those little things, isn't it? Like on the back to backs, they played Chicago and Nashville on the road. Never easy, kind of finishing one game, getting straight on the plane to go to an entirely different city. And yes, they lost that game in overtime, but they picked up that point. They picked up that extra point, and that's going to go. If you can do that over the course of the season, where you can, that'll get you those extra points that will keep you right up there in contention. But yeah, it's been a pretty solid week for Edmonton. They have really turned their fortunes around. It's like someone just hit a light switch on the whole team and just decided, time to play, guys. And they've just absolutely gone and battered most of the teams they've come up against. They're being kind of rewarded for their decent week by returning home for an extended home stint for their next few games. They've got the Blues, the Devils, the Penguins, the Capitals, and the Ducks. So definitely some winnable games in there for them. And none of those games are on back-to-back nights as well. So they're getting at least a night off between each game. I think with you look at the opposition they've got to play there. I think that they could go on an absolute tear this week. I think just with the way they're playing at the moment.
Yeah. They're playing decent hockey. They're having decent goaltending. Ingram's performing out of his mind in this team for some reason. And Jarry's come back from injury, so another bonus for them there. I'll say a bit of a looser game against the Predators, but Jarry also gets a shutout against the Canucks. The other bit of news coming from Edmonton this week is that Leon Draisaitl will be away from the team for a week or so as he deals with I believe, a family illness. So he's going back to Germany. Also, there's no exact date on his return, but they've said it won't be a prolonged absence. But again, from the penalty box perspective, all our best wishes to Leon Draisaitl and his family.
Yeah, of course. And we're at the 18th of January as we record this. The Olympics are in a couple of weeks' time. He may well return to Edmonton for those final couple of games, but honestly, I wouldn't be surprised at all if he just stayed in Germany until the Olympic break. But yeah, as long as he just takes all the time he needs to make sure everyone's all good on his end, then yeah. But as always, like you said, sending our best to him at this time.
Yeah. So we'll move on into the third place team, the Seattle Kraken, up one spot. And I say up one spot, there's 4 teams now in a row, Matt, which is why we've led off with the Pacific Division, all fighting, 4 teams fighting for the last guaranteed playoff spot, it appears, all currently on 51 points. Seattle are out front of that at the moment. They've got a record of 21, 17, and 9, though it is worth noting they're sat on a minus 11, plus minus as a team. They've also played 4 games this week, beating the Rangers 4-2, losing to the Devils in overtime 3-2, and then back-to-back regulation losses against the Boston Bruins 4-2 and the Utah Mammoth 6-3. So they've been on a bit of an away trip, and then they come away with 3 points out of a possible 8, but they're still currently in prime position.
Yeah, they are, and they've kind of been doing what they've been doing all season, is kind of fighting through enough to keep themselves in that conversation and just sort of doing what they can, where they can to try and keep themselves in the hunt for a playoff spot. Jared McCann's had a decent week. He's picked up 4 points in those 4 games, and Vince Dunn as well, getting 4 assists as well across those games. Their goaltending's been a little bit difficult this week. Decord and Grubauer, especially in those losses to the Bruins and the Mammoth, both kind of struggled a little bit in that game. But look, they kind of they return home now to face the Penguins, the Islanders, the Ducks, and the Devils. So 4 games at home. A game there against Anaheim within the division. And some opportunities there for them to try and take this third spot by storm. But we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, Seattle battling through as always.
Battling through under the radar. They can't seem. Obviously, they scored 4 against the Rangers. I think that's the highest scoring game they've had all year. Uh, Again, just filling in that trope, but the fact they're on a -11. I mean, a lot of these teams are in minuses in this division, but yeah, we'll move on, I think, into the fourth place team in this division. Down the spot this week, I think, again, Seattle's played 4 games this week. The San Jose Sharks have only played 2. So they're sat on 51 points, a record of 24, 20, and 3 with a -20 plus minus. 2 games, both on the road. First against the Capitals, they beat the Capitals 3-2 and then lost to the Red Wings 4-2. So, yeah, decent week, I guess, for the Sharks. I mean, they're still in it, which is more than what they were expecting.
Yeah, we've got a little 2-2 here from the Sharks. Yeah, but look, like you said, 2 games played. A victory against the Capitals, a loss against the Red Wings, kind of what you would expect, really, especially with the way that the Red Wings have been playing recently. They've got a couple more road games coming up down in Florida against the Panthers and the Lightning before returning home to face the Rangers. But it's been nice recently. They've managed to find like a little bit of secondary scoring. Like, okay, yeah, Celebrini is still far and away the highest scorer on this team. He's absolutely kind of running away with it, and he picked up another couple of assists across these 2 games. But Regenda, Colin Graff, chipping in with a little bit of secondary scoring there, which does help the team massively. And they'll be looking forward to getting Will Smith back off of injured reserve. Hopefully, whether or not he comes back before the Olympic break or after, I'm not entirely sure on the timescale of his return. But yeah, kind of a week as expected from the San Jose Sharks. And I think of all the teams sort of battling it out on these 51 points, I do think that they are probably maybe the least likely to find themselves in a playoff spot. It all kind of hinges completely on Celebrini for me. I mean, if he slows up in his contribution in any way, shape, or form, that's going to cause a big problem for the Sharks. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see what happens there. But right now, again, they are vastly overperforming, I think, what was expected of them this year. And I think Big Macklin is a reason for that. So yeah, fair play to him entirely.
Uh, Definitely MVP, really, Celebrini. If he gets this team to the playoffs on his back at such a young age, it would be incredible. And the state of hockey and the sport, if the Sharks do end up making the playoffs, and a team like, I'll say like the Winnipeg Jets, who are obviously having a bad season, but we know they're a quality team, and if they miss the playoffs and the Sharks get in, eyebrows will be eyebrows will be raised. But that's the nature of sport, really.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you. I think certainly if he stays within kind of 10 to 15 points of McKinnon and McDavid, and the Sharks do make the playoffs, I think at that point it's really hard not to be talking about Celebrini for the Hart Trophy, which as a teenager is just an absolutely unbelievable achievement. But yeah, we'll wait and see. But I'm kind of looking forward to seeing how that all shakes out.
Yeah, it's definitely something to keep an eye on. Next thing we're going to talk about, again, also on 51 points. Up 1 spot to 5th is the Anaheim Ducks. 24, 21, and 3 record and a -14 plus minus. I think we've seen a bit more of sort of a return to form, at least defensively, for the Anaheim Ducks. We've talked about how they've been shedding goal after goal after goal after goal, but 3 games, 3 wins, beating the Stars 3-1 in a great game for them. They then had back-to-back games or back-to-back nights against the LA Kings. Took them to a shootout and beat them in a shootout in one, and then beat them in overtime in the other. But you look at the goals conceded, 3-1, 3-2, 2-1. They're definitely on the better end now.
Yeah, and they needed that. They really needed that run of 3 games, and I think from everyone, I think, like I said, defensively, they firmed up a bit. Some good goaltending performances from Dostal and Husso across those 3 games, and we said last week, potentially this team, we know we know how good they are going forward, and maybe in some ways you need to sacrifice a little bit of that in order to be a bit more sort of defensively resolute. And I mean, full disclosure, I haven't sort of watched any of their games in their entirety, but they seem to have certainly found a way of being a bit more defensively solid. And it's paid off for them, and they've picked up 3 wins and have put themselves sort of right back in the conversation. And I think that is absolutely great for this team. Certainly with how they started the season and how they've carried on, they were this sort of unfortunate recipient of a few really rough weeks, but yeah, brilliant turnaround from them. They'll be, I'm sure, hoping that they can keep it going. They've got the Rangers at home before then going on the road to the Avalanche, the Kraken, and the Flames, and the Oilers as well. So some interdivisional games there for them as well. So some really big opportunities. But yeah, good to see them sort of back on form.
Yeah. They are dealing with a bit of an injury crisis in their forward core. Leo Carlson, Chris Kreider, Troy Terry, Frank Vetrano, all out injured at the moment. Players like Alex Killorn is getting plenty of minutes, but also Bennett Seneca as well, another young, very good quality player, putting in decent minutes and getting decent returns. But it's just something to keep an eye on if the injuries keep building up, especially because the players that are injured are on my fantasy team, which is frustrating because I've got a bench full of injuries at the minute.
Well, you and me both.
So, yeah, it's that time of the season, isn't it? But yeah, it's just something to keep an eye on because some of the players they're playing on the back end now are names I've never heard of. So I'm not sure about you, but they might be good, might be bad, but they're getting the wins at an important time of the season.
Yeah, definitely, and yeah, Beckett Seneca's another one who's going to be someone in a shout for the Calder Trophy this year. Could potentially be a finalist. I don't necessarily think he'll win it, but he's had a great rookie season. Really, really strong from him. But yeah, like I said, great return to form for Anaheim, and hopefully they can stay healthy and keep the results coming.
Yeah. Now, the final team sat on 51 points is the LA Kings. Poor week for the Kings, really. They're more like the Los Angeles Princes. Minus 11, plus minus, record of 19, 16, and 13. 13 overtime losses, but on regulation losses. If you look at their week, they lost against the Stars 3-1. They lost to the Golden Knights in overtime 3-2. They lost in the shootout to the Ducks, and they lost in overtime to the Ducks. No player at a point per game. They've got 3 points out of these 4 games, but not a single win.
Yeah, and that's the difference, though, isn't it? And like we were saying before, they've lost all 4 games. They've still come away with 3 points, though. And fail that, if they'd lost all of them in regulation, they'd be sat down on 48 points. With things looking potentially a lot more shaky. And it's classic Kings hockey at this point. You look at all of those results, none of them particularly high scoring. We know that's the way they like to play. But they're scrappy, really scrappy, and right now that's keeping them within a sniff. But they are going to have to start sort of picking up some wins, and trying to do something to. Trying to do something to try and push themselves into that playoff spot. We know they've got the players to do it, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know with this team. They're kind of starting to concern me a little bit. I mean, they've got the Rangers coming up at home, and then the Blues and the Blue Jackets on the road. So I mean, that is quite a generous schedule coming up. So we're going to have to see how they do across those 3 games. But yeah, they're going to have to pick it up a little bit.
They are. And I've got a mini little category that I'm going to put the Kraken in, the LA Kings in, and the Washington Capitals in. Obviously, we'll get onto that team. But all teams who are, one way or another, getting decent results are in with a shout, potentially should be doing better, but also they're like really kind of boring to watch. Like there's nothing inspirational. They're just sort of like a well-built, decent team that neither score lots of goals or concede lots of goals, and they're just there, if that makes sense.
It's like a whole bunch of submarines, isn't it? They're all just sat beneath the surface, just like completely under the radar, but still sort of chipping away. Just one of the submarine teams. But yeah,
submarine teams.
They are. Yeah, I think they're uninspiring. I think at the best of times.
Yeah. Right, we'll go into the seventh place team, and this is where we see another sort of drop away. The Calgary Flames remaining seventh on 46 points, so only 5 points behind the playoff place, which at the start of this year you'd be shocked at that was how it's going. But they're also sat on a minus 17 plus minus differential, so better than the team like San Jose. They've had 3 games this week, 2 wins and a loss. So they lost against the Blue Jackets 5-3, but then beat your Blackhawks 3-1. And I'm seeing lots of losses for Chicago, I'm afraid. And also beat the Islanders 4-2 last night in the Rittick revenge game. Um, but yeah, it was a decent week for Calgary, and maybe they're not as bad a team as we think. Though I think the big news coming out of Calgary at the moment is all about the Rasmus Anderson trade, really.
Yeah, and look, they've picked up a couple of wins, and they do have that kind of in their locker every now and then that they are capable of sort of putting together a couple of decent nights. Sharon Govich got 2 goals and 3 assists across those 3 games. Backlund with 2 goals and 2 assists. Connor Zary with 4 assists as well. But I just think with this team, they are not a team that's going to be getting any better over the coming weeks. They are a team that will sort of unequivocally get worse. You expect Anderson to be traded. You probably expect Kadri to be traded. Really wouldn't surprise me if Coleman's traded as well. So they're not a team that's going to get any better. So yes, they're 5 points out of a playoff spot right now, but I think they're keeping one eye on the draft and trying to see sort of what they can pick up there. But yeah, I don't see this team sort of moving much out of that 7th place spot for me.
And ultimately, that's where they might end up. But I also do think that they're a sleepy team that might actually play better when they haven't got when they trade these bigger names and you got more fill-in players playing, and they might actually play some freer hockey with zero expectations. They're kind of in purgatory here. The team we'll talk about next are even further behind than Calgary. So that yeah, I agree. They're probably a 7th place team, but I do think they'll perform better than what we kind of expect them to do. And just touching on Rasmus Anderson, I think the big team that's being linked to him at the moment, from what I've been seeing, is the Boston Bruins. I think the issue they're facing there is what's going to come back in that trade. I think Calgary are wanting a bit more than what teams are wanting to offer, as is probably always the case with trades.
Yeah, but teams will get desperate, and Anderson is probably the most premium defenseman that's available. I believe he's a right shot as well, which always kind of jacks the value up a little bit more. I could be wrong there, but yeah, right now they'll just be kind of that bargaining of negotiation, won't there? There'll be a price in mind that Calgary will want right at this particular moment in time. Teams will probably not want to pay it, but there's probably about 10 teams interested in trading for Rasmus Anderson. So I think Calgary will end up getting what they want. It's just kind of a game of chicken at the moment, isn't it? Where you're waiting for someone to move first.
Yeah. Right, we'll move into the 8th team, Vancouver Canucks, way
Christ.
down on 37 points. They are the worst team in this league by a country mile. I think they're on a 10-game losing streak as it stands, and it's not like they were winning games beforehand. They're on a minus 50 plus minus. They've played 4 games this week, losing 6-3, 2-1, 4-1, and 6-0. Yikes. Demko's on injured reserve. The best player, Marco Rossi's on injured reserve. They're just. It's just a team with no hope. We talk about submarines. This team's a shipwreck that's been long forgotten about.
Yeah. They're terrible. They're absolutely terrible. The team are playing badly. The kind of vibes are off within the team. The fans aren't having a good time. The players aren't having a good time. And this, this season's turning into a disaster. But fortunately, the way that kind of hockey works, a disastrous season can often kind of see you being rewarded. So I think it's just, season's done for them. Nothing going on. They've got some home games coming up, following this, but it's not going to make any difference. They're just terrible. They're just terrible. So yeah, nothing more for me on the Vancouver Canucks. Just done, absolutely done.
Yep. That leads us then to the first of our mini segments. Now, I'm going to start off on a positive note with the plays of the week. Now, I'm going to let you lead off and talk about how one of our least favourite teams and probably least respected players has really turned the tables.
Yeah, it was an unreal play from Aiden Hill at the Vegas Golden Knights. Every now and then you come across one of those saves that just almost defies logic, physics, the biology of how the body's supposed to move. And yeah, it was an absolutely unreal save from Hill. He's kind of got his whole body on a swivel and kind of pivots around to get something on it, and it was just an absolutely unbelievable save. Um, yeah, really, really caught me by surprise, especially with kind of how critical we've been of Vegas's goaltending this season, and Aiden Hill in particular. But yeah, a rare moment of brilliance from the Vegas goaltender, and an absolutely massive save.
Yeah, it's just spaghetti legs, really, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I know a lot of goalies do their yoga over the course of the year, and especially in the off season. A lot of them end up on like yoga retreats and stuff like that. I know Jeremy Swayman in particular is a massive yoga guy. But yeah, the flexibility and the kind of hip strength of them to kind of get those legs swiveled round is unbelievable. But yeah, great individual moment of brilliance from Aiden Hill.
Makes you think if he meant to do it or not, eh?
Oh, definitely did, and for that to come in a game they end up winning in overtime as well. Absolute sort of the gravity of the save, unbelievable.
Yeah. With that, we'll move on into the second division and head over east to the Metropolitan Division. First team, again, starting to extend their lead now, as expected, is the Carolina Hurricanes. Currently set on 64 points, 30 wins, 15 losses, and 4 overtime losses, regulation losses. Plus 27, plus minus. They've had a fairly steady week, 5 points in out of 8. An overtime loss against the Red Wings, 4-3. A really bizarre 3-0 loss against the St. Louis Blues. But then came back out with some force and beat the Panthers 9-1, and then the Devils 4-1.
Yeah, look, 7 point lead at the top of the Metro now for the Carolina Hurricanes, and yeah, they've got this division on lock seemingly. Yeah, really crazy road loss to the Blues, 3-0, really kind of unexpected. It was a tight one in that game against the Red Wings. I mean, Freddie Anderson with a poor game there. He had a 777 save percentage. Rough, really rough.
Seven,
But
seven,
but then
seven, 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 seven. That's a Friends reference there. If
that is
anybody's
a great Friends reference. Big fan of that. Um, but yeah, came out and absolutely blew the doors off of the Florida Panthers, and then Anderson returning to a slightly better performance in that road victory against the Devils. But yeah, look, this team kind of are what they are now. It's their division to lose. Aho's been chipping in with 7 assists this week. Svechnikov with 4 goals and an assist, and Ehlers getting that hat trick in the game against the Panthers as well. Great for him. And Blake with 2 goals, 2 assists. Seth Jarvis with a goal and 3 assists. So getting scoring right the way through the lineup, really, really impressive. They've got a couple of home games now against the Sabres and the Blackhawks before then going on the road to Ottawa. So yeah, they're looking really good, looking really strong. Yeah, Metro's theirs to lose.
I don't think they will. Looking at these other teams that are going up and down. The second place team in this division remain the New York Islanders. sat on 57 points, so 7 points, good maths. 26, 17 and 5 record, sat on a +7. A bit of an interesting week. They lost to the Jets 5-4 before then travelling to Edmonton and beating the Oilers 1-0, and then lost to the Flames 4-2. So this sort of Western Canada away trip has returned 2 points out of 6, but they're still in second place.
Yeah, still in second place and probably won the one you would have expected them to lose and lost the two that you'd have expected them to win. But yeah, this team, I'm kind of rooting for the New York Islanders in this respect. I think that they're, I would quite like to see them in the playoffs. I think that, Schaefer's been such a massive part of this team this year. I'd like to see him rewarded sort of personally with that. And again, he's another guy who will be in that conversation for the Calder Trophy with Demidov and Seneca and everything like that. They've got a couple of road games to kind of round out their road trip. They've got the Canucks and the Kraken, so definitely a couple of games that are winnable there. Returning home to face the kind of red hot Buffalo Sabres and then on the road to the Flyers. So yeah, there's definitely points available. And I do hope for the sake of this team that they're able to keep everything up and keep it all going.
Yeah. Just shout out to Ilya Sorokin for that shutout against the Oilers, where I think he went up against 30 plus shots. I've got him in my fantasy team, and he scored me a lot of points. And as more of a Calgary fan rather than an Edmonton fan, it was great to see the Oilers get shut out as well. So thank you, Sorokin.
Yeah, never hurts, does it? Never hurts.
Never hurts. We'll move on to third place in this division, and there's a bit of change here now. 55 points, up 2 spots to Pittsburgh Penguins. Record of 22, 14 and 11, +6 on the season. We said that they had I forgot what the exact term I used, but they had a low energy week last week. A low wattage, I think it was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Now talk about a bit more higher wattage this week. They did beat the Flyers 6-3 in a sandwich of 2 penalty shootout losses against the Lightning and the Blue Jackets. So some entertainment in Pittsburgh this week.
Yeah, for sure. But so they've picked up those extra points, especially against the Lightning. Being able to take that to a shootout is impressive. Certainly with the way that they're playing. And I think one of the key things to point out, which I do like, the kind of revisionist in me and the nostalgia, is that the top point scorers on the team this week have been Crosby, Malkin, and Letang. Just absolutely dialing back the years there. But yeah, Sidney Crosby still doing Sidney Crosby things. Still, could well hit 100 points this season. Malkin as well. Again, sort of remaining consistent and in his sort of production and his output. And yeah, a good goaltending performance from Stuart Skinner in the game against the Flyers. But yeah, they've pushed their way back up there, and I don't really know sort of what the rest of the season's going to hold for this Pittsburgh team, but it's certainly going to be interesting to see where they end up, certainly kind of looking through the rest of this division.
Yeah. This is such a weird division. I know no team. So Carolina, when you were great and have sort of extended now, and then the rest of these teams are just a jumbo sale full of weird weeks and not really. I don't know. It's very good. We've said this before. It's really entertaining when it's really this close, and you can't really predict it one week to the next, and teams are constantly shuffling up and down. So it's going to be an interesting last few weeks of the season if this continues, but it's difficult to report on them and try to get an accurate sense of what kind of team they are.
Yeah.
The Penguins we all thought were going to be binned off early doors.
Yeah, for sure. And you look, there's a 4-point gap separating 6th in this division and the Pittsburgh Penguins. So, again, that conversation around that final playoff spot, similarly to the Pacific Division, is going to be an interesting one. And it'll be kind of interesting to see post-Olympic break, when teams have had a couple of weeks to sort of rest and recuperate, sort of who comes out the blocks firing for that final stretch of the season.
Yeah. Remaining in 4th place, 54 points is the Washington Capitals. record 24-19-6, plus 14, and they are a submarine team. They beat the Canadiens 3-2 in overtime, and then lost 3-2 to the Sharks and 5-2 to the Panthers at home. I think you can best sum it up as the fact that the only players this week for the Capitals that have played at a point per game are three defensemen. Yeah, they're missing Tom Wilson, not Logan Wilson. Tom Wilson. They're missing Tom Wilson of all people, I think.
Yeah, he's I think a little bit sort of banged up. I think he's going to be kind of ready to go. Hopefully, sort of come Olympics. If not, I think I think Sam Bennett will be chomping at the bit for that spot. But yeah, it's been kind of all about the defensemen, this week in a point scoring thing, and just in terms of just to highlight like an individual season as a whole. Jacob Chikrin for me has had a great season. I know that's not the first time we've said that on this show, but I do really like Jacob Chikrin, and he was liked him when he was in Arizona, and he's landed in Washington now, and he's kind of really asserting himself as a really solid two-way defenseman in this league. So really really good season from him as a whole. But the Caps now they go on a bit of a road trip. They've got the Avalanche, the Canucks, the Flames, and the Oilers. So a proper mixed bag, kind of two elite teams and two teams that I don't think you could describe them as elite. So it'll be again interesting to see where they shake out. But I think that the Capitals could be on for maybe like another sort of 2 wins, 2 losses, kind of 500 type season week.
Yeah. I still expect this team to just pull out the bag and get into the playoffs. I think these are the strongest team on paper out of these. It's on mid division purgatory. But who knows? Who knows in this sport?
Yeah, it's a very hard one to predict, that's for sure.
Yeah. Now, the fifth team in this division, I gave them a bit of praise because they seem to have cemented a third place spot and stopped going this yo-yo up and down the division, but they've gone back down again 2 spots. The Philadelphia Flyers, 52 points, 22-17 and 8 record on a -8 to plus-minus. They have had a shocking week, really. 4 games played, 4 straight losses in regulation. 5-1 to the Lightning, 5-2 to the Sabres, 6-3 to the Penguins, and 6-3 to the Rangers. They're playing hot potato goaltending wise as well. I think they swapped out their goaltender in 3 of these 4 games.
Yeah, it's been a rough one, and that's where it's one of those weeks where, again, not to kind of sound like a broken record and sort of touch on it, again, but that is the difference, isn't it? When you have 4 regulation losses and you pick up nothing over the course of the week compared to some of these, teams who have lost more games, but squeaking out those extra points in overtime or in a shootout, or however it is that it plays out for them, and at this point in the season where things are as tight as they are, I mean, again, they're only a couple of points off of off of Pittsburgh. Those extra points matter at this point in time, and that's why they've kind of ended up sliding a couple of spots. But no kidding with that hot potato goalie situation. Like you said, 3 of those 4 games, Vladar out for Urson out for Kolosov out for Urson. So it's just like musical chairs with the with the goalie spot in Philly this week. They just left Vladar in to get shelled by the Tampa Bay Lightning in that first loss of the week, but. Yeah, they've got some tricky games coming up for their next 4 as well. They've got the Golden Knights on the road, the Mammoth on the road, the Avalanche on the road, and then the Islanders at home. So, they're going to have to. They can't have another week of 4 regulation losses, otherwise that's going to put them in quite a tough spot.
Yeah, it's make or break week now for the Flyers. They can easily get cut adrift here. Would we expect it? I don't know. We'll see. But yeah. We'll move on to the 6th team in this division. And hurrah, hurrah, the Columbus Blue Jackets are here to play. They're up 2 spots, 51 points, record of 22-19-7, still sat on a -12, but it seems like sacking a head coach in Dean Everson, who I do have a lot of time for as ex-Wild coach, seems to have done the trick. 3 games this week, 3 wins. The Flames 5-3, Canucks 4-1, and then beat the Penguins in the shootout 4-3. So albeit against some weaker opposition, but they're actually getting some wins on the board, and they're right back in it.
Yeah, they're getting that new coach bounce, aren't they? They've brought in Rick Bowness, who's kind of a member of the NHL Old Boys Club, and kind of that carousel of guys who just kind of keep finding themselves employed. He's 70 years old, is Rick Bowness. He's knocking on a bit now, but hey, still an effective coach. Got them some good wins, and we kind of been waiting for someone to help out Zach Werenski on the scoring. I mean, Werenski still led the team in scoring this week, but Charlie Coyle, Kirill Marchenko, Boone Jenner, all kind of chipping in with some extra points as well to get them over the line in those wins. And like you said, they're here to play. They're not too far away from the Pittsburgh Penguins. They're only 4 points away now, and things could get interesting. They've got the Senators, the Stars, the Lightning, and the Kings coming up. All of those are at home, so if they can keep this this new bounce going with a home crowd, then we'll see how the Jackets shake out.
So I've just been looking at Rick Bowness now. The only current head coach who also coached a team in the 1980s, and he has also coached both iterations of the Winnipeg Jets.
Jesus Christ!
So
wow,
I'm half surprised he hasn't set Merzlikins in goal without a helmet on, just to channel the Glenn Hall in his coaching styles. But,
yeah, telling his goalies to what were you doing in this butterfly position? Stand up, man.
Stand up. Just stop looking like a wally. Come on. What's yoga? You don't need yoga. Just need a big set of balls and fucking block these shots. Anyway, right. I'm losing myself again. Right, back on track. Okay, so 7th place in this division on 50 points. Down the spot is the New Jersey Devils. They've gone down the spot, and despite the fact they've won 2 games out of 3 this week, they beat my Minnesota Wild 5-2, which we'll get onto later. They beat the Kraken in overtime 3-2, and then back to form as it stands. They lost 4-1 to the Carolina Hurricanes. So, what are your thoughts on the New Jersey Devils, Matt? Are they going to make a comeback on this few wins they've picked up?
I don't know. I mean, if you kind of factor in their overtime losses, they're 24-24 this season, so kind of 500 right down the middle. But yeah, I mean, that's again, that is the separator for this New Jersey team. Only picking up 2 losses in sort of overtime and 22 in regulation. Even if they'd been able to pick up 5 or 6, if they'd taken 5 or 6 of those regulation losses to overtime, they'd be right in there. They'd be right up there, still in that playoff spot, still battling, but they're not. And generally, I think that because they've, when they've lost in regulation, they've tended to take a bit of a kicking. They're on that kind of Canadian road trip coming up, with Calgary and Edmonton, Vancouver, and then sliding down into Seattle to face the Kraken. So, road trip coming up potentially at the wrong time as they're finding a bit of form. But yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of losing faith in this New Jersey team, kind of regardless of the recent upturn. Good to see Dougie Hamilton getting 4 assists across those games after he was a healthy scratch in the previous week. I'm sure, I know there's been conversations around Dougie Hamilton being traded. Certainly not hurting his stock at all if he's as productive as he's been this week.
Yeah, it's just weird vibes from this team. Like, I'm just getting some weird voodoo energy. They're called the Devils, I guess, for a reason. Like they seem to be touched by Satan a little bit in terms of just that they should be doing a lot better than they are, and I just can't make head and tail of it. And the fact they beat my Wild 5-2 is just It's just wild coming up with all the puns. But yeah, I just can't put my finger on it. Dougie Hamilton, he was scratched, like you say, a healthy scratch, and they say because they didn't see he wasn't the top six. He wasn't a top six defenseman, as it were, in the squad for that particular game. Obviously, they put him back in, and he's getting consistent points again. So it's just, I don't know whether it's a kick up the backside that they were trying to do or what. I don't know, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Who
starting to
knows?
think those Devils teams of the '90s, the '90s and early 2000s that won those three cups. I'm starting to think they signed some sort of contract with the Devil himself, and now the sort of chickens are coming home to roost, so to speak. But yeah, there's definitely kind of something in the air at New Jersey, an air of bad fortune or something. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know with this team anymore.
No. Uh, Another team I think we're sick of as well is the New York Rangers. Eighth spot, down one, 48 points, record of 21, 22, and 6 with a minus 18. Now, the big news coming out of sort of New York is that they're expecting to sign Panarin. They're expected to go on try to sort it all out, but I think the general manager took all the players by surprise and released like a letter to the media saying that they're going to be, in air quotes, retooling,
Yes.
whatever the fuck that means.
Yeah, so it's not going to be a complete rebuild. Like, we're not going to sell everyone, but we are going to kind of get rid of a lot of the aged pieces, focus on draft picks, focus on young players, that sort of thing. And look, yeah, I mean, that kind of caught me by surprise when I saw it, but I do think it's kind of what this team needs. I think they'll try and rebuild this team a little bit around sort of the likes of Fox and Lafreniere maybe. But I think we'll start to see a few guys getting shipped out the door in New York, and I think we'll probably be surprised by some of the guys that end up going. But yeah, another rough week for them. They're firmly rooted to the bottom of this division and have been really, really poor. Just as one kind of little note before we leave the New York Rangers in the dust, did you see the record broken by Mika Zibanejad this week?
He's got 2 hat tricks on it. Is there something to do with that?
Not quite, but it's close. But Mika Zibanejad has now scored the most power play goals in New York Rangers history. Which, on one hand is a slightly kind of like one of these slightly niche stats and records that we talk about regularly. But, there's an awful lot of, on an original six team, breaking any sort of scoring record on an original six team is no, no small feat. So, yeah, quite impressive and shows how effective he is on the, on the special teams. And Zibanejad, could be one of those guys who we potentially see on the trade block.
I was going to say, he's broken a record for this team. Get rid of him! Get rid of him! Trade him! Don't want him.
Yeah,
Panarin, top scorer on the team, but we're not going to resign you to a new contract. Well, I don't know. Pull my hair up. Paul Mike Sullivan, he jumped ship from a Pittsburgh Penguins team that everyone thought was going to go for a rebuild. He's gone to the Rangers, and I was going to face another rebuild. Meanwhile, the Pittsburgh Penguins are on track to make the playoffs this year.
I mean, it's not a rebuild, though. It's a retool.
It's a retool. Oh, shut up.
Yeah, Mika Zibanejad, 32 years old, in the 4th year of his 8-year contract, $8.5 million. That's no sort of chump change. Don't know if the Rangers do decide to trade him. I don't know if they'll have to sort of eat a little bit of that salary, but Mika Zibanejad could absolutely do a role on a good contending team. So yeah, we'll see. But that's quite a meaty contract to take him up to the age of 37. So yeah, we'll have to see. But I think he could be someone who's finds himself potentially on the block.
Yeah. Who knows? Next. In the second segment, we're actually going to go through cheats of the week. I know I'm very tempted just from that conversation just to go with the New York Rangers franchise. We've actually got another goaltender. That's they can really make or break your weeks really here. But Kolosov for the Philadelphia Flyers. We talked about the goaltender carousel that the Flyers have been having this week. Up against the New York Rangers, they don't face a shot for 7 minutes in that game to the Flyers, and in the space of 90 seconds, they face 3 shots and concede 3 goals. And Kolosov gets yoinked out of there in the 8th minute of that game. So for that reason, and just save percentage of 0%. I think that's why we're going to give him the cheeks of the week crown.
Yeah, that is absolute buns from Kolosov. 3 goals in 3. That can't happen. That cannot happen. Not in a minute and 25 seconds as well. That is literally like 90 seconds from hell.
It ruins your game, doesn't it? It just completely derails. They were 1-0 up, and all of a sudden, in a flash, they were 3-1 down.
Yeah, and at that point,
swung that momentum to the New York Rangers as well, who can't score for toffee.
Of all teams, of all teams. Rough one.
It's a shame, really, because I've always thought like Vladar's there, one goaltender, and Urson hasn't been very good. And I always thought put Kolosov in, he's done all right when he's been playing, and they put him in, and he did shocking. And now they're going to ride with Urson. So anyway, that's my cheeks of the week, or our cheeks of the week.
Oh yeah, couldn't agree more.
All right. Move on then into the 3rd division, and we're going to go back west to the Central. No surprises here. The first team in this division still in first, 74 points. The Colorado Avalanche, though they've had a shocking week, Matt. They've lost 2 games out of 2. The Maple Leafs in overtime 4-3, but then they got beaten at home in regulation by the Nashville Predators 7-3.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Yeah. But I mean, we're at the 16th of January when that game's, and that was their first regulation loss at home this season. Just ridiculous. But yeah, it was a rough night for Mackenzie Blackwood. He had a bit of a tough one, and the overtime loss with Minor in goal. I mean, 2 games, 2 losses, a point picked up, but they're in cruise control at this moment in time, so they are going to drop the odd game now and then. But no dramas for me.
Still 11 points clear. Still 11 points clear of 2nd place after a 2-game week with 1 point. So all the usual names are still scoring points. They've just had an off day, really, off week, but who cares really? They're still going to be great. We've got games against the Capitals, Ducks, Flyers at home, and then an away trip to Toronto again. To face Toronto again at the back end. So busy week next week. I'm sure they'll pick up lots more wins. I'm not concerned about this week at all.
Not even slightly.
Second place in this division, still in second place, is the Dallas Stars, 63 points, 27, 12, and 9 on a plus 27. Again, a bit of a poor week for the Dallas Stars. They beat the Kings 3-1 and then lost on the road to the Ducks 3-1 and to the Mammoth 2-1 as well. So, a couple of low scoring affairs. They've only got Johnston getting a point per game in this week, but still right.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I think this is the thing with the Central Division. I think we will probably see this from the 3 teams that are streaking away. Is they probably will kind of drop a couple of unexpected games because they're cut that far, forward now that the foot kind of comes off the accelerator just a hair. But Wyatt Johnston's still getting 3 points in 3 games, and he's having an absolutely cracking season. What a player he is. But uncharacteristically low scoring affairs for the Dallas Stars. They tend to be a bit of sort of an offensive juggernaut, but not not in these road games. But they've got the Lightning and the Bruins coming up at home, the Blue Jackets on the road, and then the St. Louis Blues at home. So I've no doubt they'll get a couple more wins back in that column. I think that home game against the Lightning will be an absolute corker. Well, I think it'll just be business as usual for them. They'll probably still be sat in either second or third place next week and roll on to the next one.
Yep. With the Stars having a bad week, I really thought that might give my Minnesota Wild a chance to climb up to second place, but alas, it was not to be. We've had a very similar week to the Dallas Stars, 63 points, 27, 13 and 9, with a plus 15, 3 games, 2 losses and an overtime win. We lost to the Devils 5-2, horrendous game. We lost to the Jets 6-2, horrendous game. And then we did beat the Buffalo Sabres on ITV4 in overtime in what was a great game, and you had everything from goals, bad goalkeeping, great goalkeeping, nonsense penalties, great penalties, a fight, anything you can think of, you had it in that Sabres game.
Yeah, Marcus Foligno absolutely thumping Kesselring into the Shadow Realm. I've never kind of really noticed as much with Marcus Foligno that he's a really big dude. He is massive. But yeah, look, yeah, again,
Huge.
it's another kind of matching week. I'm pretty sure Minnesota and Dallas have been on like the same points total for like the last 3 weeks now when we've done this, and Minnesota have kind of stayed down in third. But yeah, they're just seemingly kind of mirroring each other. But yeah, look, just to kind of, I mean, I don't have too much to touch on with those Devils and Jets games, but that win against the Sabres, obviously hockey is growing in the UK, and to be able to have, whether it's just going to be a game a week or, something like that, having that first game, play out the way it did, what an absolute advert for the sport. Back and forth, goals going in left, right, and centre. We get a bit of overtime as well, and a really, really impressive display from both teams, and got a really good, kind of reception. Everything I was seeing on social media, also potentially. And this will be going up on our social medias. I was rather proud. A tweet from a certain penalty box perspective managed to make it onto the international broadcast for the Minnesota Buffalo game. So very happy there for myself personally. Yeah, absolutely. I was going to message you about it yesterday. Happened. I'll get the screenshot in. That'll go up on our socials. But yeah, so yeah, the international broadcast with and I was just watching it. I absolutely love sort of Kevin Weeks' color commentaries. He's great fun. Obviously, former goaltender. It was a great spectacle. I thought that ITV kind of ran it pretty well, and it all kind of went through sort of no hiccups, and we didn't get any sort of weird ad breaks mid play or anything like that. So yeah, was a good first week, and definitely seems to be kind of receiving some positive reception online.
Good. It's what we need in the UK, and it's what this podcast is about: is to bring this great sport to more fans in the UK, and you can listen and understand what's going on in the sport when a lot of the games are played at the early hours. I'll always remember the fact that the Wild were the first team to play on ITV4. That's going to be a proud moment for me. I might get it on a T-shirt. Who knows? Might be one of the only things I can claim from this season, because the problem is with my Wild team, and I will touch on their hockey for a moment while I have the opportunity, is that we had a bad run at the start of this year, and I was getting really down in the dumps about it. And then we went on a massive run, and then we signed Quinn Hughes in a massive trade. And what can I say? He is a phenomenal player. Absolutely great to watch. How he turns and weaves and things. You don't even appreciate the skill that he has. And he's sort of turned his team around in a lot of respects. But we are starting to I'm scared. The pessimism in me is scared that we're gonna fall into that area of inconsistency again in our play. Like that Sabres game, we dominated that game and we let them back in with a few stupid issues and also, for me, poor refereeing in some of those calls, which put us on the penalty kill quite a few times unfairly, I would say. But again, we're also dealing with injuries. Baldy's out. Eriksson Ek is out. Brodin is out week to week. Probably he may be a risk to not play at the Olympics now, so we won't see him for several time for a lot of time. So we've got Bogosian out as well on the back end, and it's just meaning I don't think this team necessarily has the depth required if it gets to playoff hockey and to remain healthy and perform well enough. But all I can say is I just hope we can keep it together.
I think they will. I think they will. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how long Baldy's expected to be out. I mean, obviously that's a massive loss. But yeah, I do think that we'll see Minnesota active at the trade deadline. I think they see this as a massive opportunity. It's worth going for it. And I know we've spoken kind of off camera about the name Ryan O'Reilly or potentially Artemi Panarin. Obviously they have the same agent as Kirill Kaprizov. So potentially if they could add one of those guys, I do think O'Reilly would maybe be a better fit for what they need. But I think they could go out and add something and really make a run of it. But I don't know. I've got my optimist hat on for Minnesota. I think they're in a little bit of a shaky patch at the moment, just with their injuries. But I think if they can get people back and get everything firing, and when you've got Hughes and Kaprizov on your team, you're always going to be within a shout of winning, night to night. And I think they'll be okay.
Because you've been a Jad. If Rangers keep some of that money, we'll see. Doubt it. Right. So we've now got a 9-point gap between third place and fourth place. The Utah Mammoth have had a mammoth week. 3 games, 3 wins, takes them up to 54 points. They smashed the Maple Leafs 6-1, beat the Stars 2-1, and smashed the Kraken 6-3. So I think this Utah team is shooing for 4th spot in this division for me.
Yeah, I think they're kind of the best of the rest, aren't they? And they've had a great week. Loads of goals scored, 14 across 3 games, whilst only allowing 5. That's mega. Some good goaltending performances from Vejmelka, and again that depth scoring throughout the team. 5 points from Schmidt, 4 from Gunther, 4 from McBain, 3 from Schmaltz, 3 from Krause, 3 from Cole and Keller and everything. So, Utah, whilst we talked about kind of like, potentially the depth issues at Minnesota, Utah seem to have that kind of consistent angle of scoring right the way through the team. And I like this team. I think they're very exciting. Certainly in the way they play, but I just think there's too much. I don't see them clawing back 9 points on those teams behind them, but I think they're a wild card shoe-in for sure at this point. And I think they're maybe the fortunate recipients of some of the teams in the Central being quite poor this year. But they're a great week for them nonetheless.
Yeah. Remaining in 5th place in this division is the Nashville Predators on 50 points, so 4 points behind the Mammoth now. 23, 21 and 4 record, sort of minus 23 plus minus. They've had a week to remember, really, I think, because when we previewed them last week, they were doing a bit like the schedule. Oilers at home, Avalanche away, God Knights away. We thought they're going to lose every game here, but they beat the Oilers 4-3 in overtime. We've talked about how they beat the Avalanche 7-3 at home. Now, they did lose 7-2 to the Golden Knights, but 4 points from 6 games against these teams has done them well.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, you're seeing the scoring from Yossi, O'Reilly, Forsberg, Stamkos. All the guys you would expect. Yeah, decent week for them given the fixtures they had. They've now got the Sabres, the Senators, and the Mammoth coming up at home. Again, they're kind of in this weird sort of purgatory section. I think by all accounts, with in terms of the likes of Stamkos and Forsberg and etc., with some of the potential viable trade options, I think that they're going to kind of make the suggestion to them that, look, if there's somewhere that you want to go, we will accommodate you as best as we can to get you there. But equally, if you want to stay, we're not going to kind of force a trade out of you or anything like that. So, I do quite like it when teams operate that way. I think it garners a lot of respect from the players, and that kind of gets around the league. So we'll see. But I mean, I think some of those guys may be wanting to, to move on. But equally, it's nice to know they've got it to fall back on if they want to stay put.
Yeah, this team had a chance to spiral out of control this year with lots of aging players, and we're sort of dooming them to their fate. But you know what? They've turned it around a little bit. Things are seeming a bit more positive, and yes, they're likely not going to be a playoff team at all this year, but also there's a lot of more feel good vibes around this team than there were a month or so ago.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll move on into the sixth place team. Again, another 4-point gap, down on 46 points now, 19, 21, and 8, with a minus 43 plus minus. St. Louis Blues, they played 2 games, they've won 2 games this week. They had that weird win 3-0 against the Hurricanes, and then they beat the Lightning in the shootout 3-2. So, frustratingly, they're doing all right, the Blues. Maybe it's because Binnington hasn't been playing.
Yeah, Hofer's come out of hiding, hasn't he, and chipped in with a shutout and then a 944 save percentage in that win against the Lightning. Yeah, irritatingly, a good couple of wins for them. They've got the Oilers, the Jets, and the Stars coming up on the road, and then the Kings at home. But yeah, I mean, nothing really on this St. Louis team. They're not going to make the playoffs. They're probably not really sort of in that prime tank position for for a really high lottery pick. We'll see if some guys get moved out the door, but yeah, next.
Yeah, I do see Jim Montgomery staying after this year, and then probably getting fired around this time next year when they're equally doing probably as poor. But that's all I'll say about this Blues team. We're moving then to the 7th place team down the spot. Your Chicago Blackhawks. Matt, what is going on? 45 points, 3 games this week, 3 losses.
Yeah, and look, it was the kind of back end of that, of the kind of sickness bug that ravaged the team, and the guys in the team have been very, they've been kind of in traditional hockey player fashion have been saying that we can't sit and use that as an excuse. We've all got to chip in and do our bit. I mean, the game against the Oilers it was just a talent gap. It was just it was just a talent gap. The loss against the Flames though was a disappointing one. You just teams like the Flames, with the way that they're playing, you would just like to think with the players available at their disposal, they would have been able to get something over the line there. And then the Bruins, yeah, disappointing. It was just on a slightly more positive note, was a really nice kind of, it was one of the centennial nights last night at the Bruins game. They had a lot of the cup winners of old coming out and getting their flowers and getting their respect from the crowd. Duncan Keith was there and Patrick Sharp was there. Teuvo Teravainen came out before the game as well, before having a bit of a stinker on the ice, but hey ho. But yeah, Marcus Kruger and Dustin Byfuglien came out as well. Obviously, he was a part of one of those cup winning teams. Dustin Byfuglien, since he's retired, Jesus man, he has put on a few pounds, to say the least. I mean, Dustin Byfuglien's a big dude, but I think he has kept his hockey playing diet up into his retirement without necessarily getting the workouts in on the other end. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's probably more terrifying than ever. He would absolutely flatten just about anyone. But yeah, he's a big boy and is now even bigger.
Don't shame him like that. He's earned his way to that
Oh hell
thing, and
yeah,
I
yeah,
can't complain
absolutely.
either because I'm
If I was a
good.
pro athlete and I'd spent years, being meticulous about everything that goes into my body, then yeah, Jesus Christ, when I retire, I'm blowing up. I'm eating everything, drinking everything, having a great time. And yeah, I know he was a part of a Q&A panel before the game as well, which would have been interesting. He's always a good talker. He's big buff, and I'm sure would have had a couple of good stories for some of the fans in attendance. But yeah, look, I don't know what's going to happen in relation to the rest of this season. There's a couple of names potentially in terms of who might be going, in terms of Murphy and Jason Dickinson. We'll just have to see, but I don't think it's going to end in the kind of unexpected playoff run that they maybe expected. But regardless, it's still been a decent season, a good season of transition. Good to see the young guys, chipping in and elevating their game. Artem Levshinov's come in and he's kind of come on leaps and bounds throughout the course of the season. Ryan Green, Oliver Moore, Colton Dock. Colton Dock leads the league in hits for rookies by like an absolute landslide. He's a physical beast. But yeah, it's another season of development. We'll see a couple of those young forwards sort of added to the team at the end of the season. Whether it be Roman Kantsarov or Anton Frondel. But if they're not here at the end of the season, they'll certainly be here next season, and they can kind of push on to the next phase.
And last up in this division is the Winnipeg Jets. Still in eighth place, 44 points. They've had a good week of it, actually. They're catching up after going on that stinking run. Only on a -4 on the season, but they beat the Islanders 5-4. They beat my Wild 6-2, and then lost in overtime 4-3 to the Maple Leafs. So 5 points out of 6 ain't bad for sure. All the known names that you can think of are all scoring at a point per game average, and they're adding Connor Hellebuck in goal. So I think it's still too late for a playoff push. I mean, crazier things have happened, but yeah, good week for the Jets.
Yeah, good week for the Jets. They've finally been able to kind of put some wins together, and some slightly better performances. Like say Hellebuck just playing game after game, kind of doing what they usually do. But yeah, I think it's a bit too little, too late. I just don't see any kind of world where they're going to where they're going to make a playoff push. Like I said, I mean, potentially stranger things have happened, but yeah, not for me.
We'll go into our final sort of mini segment, um, often called the Stones of the Week, and this relates to one of your players actually. It started this because I sent you a message saying, "Did you see how Kevin Stenlund for the Utah Mammoth?" I think they rode him out for 3.5 minutes at the end of their game, just essentially for face-offs, and he was absolutely blasted by the end of it. And then you promptly responded back with a video of drumroll.
Yeah, Artem Levshinov's shift, for Chicago that lasted over 5 minutes. The guy looked absolutely dead to rights on the ice. He was in an unfortunate position with him playing on the right hand side. The benches were on the left hand side with where they were playing, and he tried numerous times to get across to get a change in and just couldn't. And by the end of it, it was hands on the knees, absolutely done. 5 minutes is an absolutely ridiculous shift. Um, just going full tilt, but yeah. Massive props to him for for being out there and doing his best to try and chip in. But yeah, that's an absolutely crazy amount of time to be on the ice for.
And not to concede as well throughout all of that.
Yeah, yeah, massive.
It's great stuff. I bet he had the rest of that period off though, did he?
More or
he came
less.
back out for a little bit after.
More or less, yeah. Just sat there in a corner drinking BioSteel or whatever it is that they drink nowadays on the bench.
Oh dear. Right, we'll move on then into the final division, and the division we spoke about first last week is getting spoken about last this. It's the Atlantic, um, primarily because although it was like quite close, I feel like there's this sort of separation now between the top three teams and the rest of the division. So the wild card spots may be interesting conversation between them and the Metro. I think the playoff spots are probably going to be cemented in this division now, I think. We'll see though. But up one spot this week is the Tampa Bay Lightning on 62 points now. The record of 29, 13, and 4, plus 43. Interesting week where they beat the Flyers 5-1, beat the Penguins in a shootout 2-1, and a loss to the Blues in a shootout. But I think this team's been inevitable from the start. They're the best team in this division, really.
Yeah, easily. Yeah, look, 5 points picked up from 3 games. Kucherov, Radish again with more points. Just he's having another great season. Yeah, look, this team's terrific. They're going to win this division. They're going to make a really good run for it in the playoffs. Really, just nothing more to say. They're just John Cooper's Barmy Army rolls on.
So, yeah. And a Braden Point had a poor start to the year, started to turn it around and come back, and is now injured. He's probably out till the Olympics. So, bad news for him. But this team is continuing on rolling.
Yeah, it does just raise one very small point. Sorry, not to cut you off there, but if Braden Point does miss the Olympics, it does potentially open up a spot for one Connor Bedard to attend the Olympics in his place. But so that is just something to keep an eye on.
Oh, I can see it now. He gets called up as an emergency and is the best player on that team.
I would love to see it.
And then that'll be the further conversation for why was he not included in the first place? Anyway. Remaining in second place is the Detroit Red Wings, 62 points as well, 29, 16, and 4. 3 games, 2 wins, 1 loss, 1 in overtime. Beat the Hurricanes 4-3 in overtime. Lost against the Bruins 3-0. But then beat the Sharks 4-2. So they're continuing to pick up important points where they matter the most, and yeah, they're still solidly in the top 3 of this division.
Yeah, they are, and they're looking good as well. Alex DeBrincat's had a great week, 2 goals and 2 assists, 4 assists from Lucas Raymond as well, and James Van Riemsdyk getting 3 points across those 3 games as well. Look, I think I'm starting to come around more and more, sort of week after week, to the conclusion that this Detroit team is a playoff team. So I'm thinking that we'll see them in the postseason. They're playing well. Their goaltending is holding up enough at the moment to get them there. They're getting points kind of up and down the lineup, and yeah, looking good for it.
Well, it's crazy. Normally, when you get to the playoffs, you see the one goalkeeper start most of the games, but in this Detroit team, I think both Gibson and Talbot are fairly equal in terms of performances and starts. So you could see that in the playoffs, which will be an interesting perspective. But we'll see. Third place in this division is the Montreal Canadiens, set on 61 points. Another team who've been picking up points at a steady pace this week. They beat the Canucks 6-3, lost in overtime to the Capitals 2-3, lost against the Sabres 5-3, but then beat the Senators in overtime 6-5. So lots of goals, both for and against this team. That they sat at +4, so it suggests that they're kind of equal, but they tend to win games in overtime a lot more than others.
Yeah, they do. They certainly take a lot of games to overtime as well. But yeah, like I say, a complete sort of pick and mix week for the Canadians with a regulation win, regulation loss, overtime win, and overtime loss. So yeah, a little bit of everything there. But yeah, Caulfield, Suzuki, and Hudson, Slavkovsky, Demidov all chipping in with at least sort of 5 points or more on the week, which is great to see. Obviously, that's kind of all the stars. Demidov's kind of looking kind of closer to that Calder Trophy each week. We'll see. I think Seneca's going to give him a good run for the money, as will Matty Schaefer. But Yeah, he's been super impressive. They've got the Wild and the Sabres coming up at home before going on the road to face the Boston Bruins. So yeah, interesting to see Sam Montembeau, back in goal, and Jakub Dobeš getting a start, and Fowler getting game as well. So yeah, a bit of a goalie carousel there in Montreal, but they're up there in that third spot, looking good. Obviously, there's a 3-point buffer between them and fourth, and hopefully they've got enough over the rest of the year to push them into the playoffs.
Yep. Obviously, 3 points behind in fourth place. So up one spot is the Boston Bruins, who've had a great week that's pulled them up. They beat the Red Wings 3-0, as we talked about before. They beat the Kraken 4-2 and your Blackhawks 5-2. So 3 wins out of 3 propels them up the standings. Swayman with a shutout against the Red Wings.
Yeah, they're looking red hot at the Bruins right now, and if they do go about adding someone like Rasmus Andersson, they are going to give the Canadiens something to think about in that final playoff spot. But yeah, they're hitting a good bit of form at the right time. Again, getting scoring right the way through the lineup from Middlestat, Lowry, Arvidsson, McAvoy, Zaka, Pasternak as well, like all at a point per game or better this week. Swayman getting that really important shutout against the Red Wings as well, and beating the Kraken, beating the Blackhawks fairly convincingly. 6 points from 6. So they've got the Stars on the road and then the Golden Knights at home, and then a really important game against the Canadiens at home on the 24th. That's going to have big stakes. And then they go to Madison Square Garden to face the Rangers, where they will inevitably pump them because the Rangers suck at home.
Yeah. I don't mind this Boston team. I don't know really much more to say about it, but if they end up as a wild card team in the playoffs, I won't be completely against it. It's been good to see them bounce back after a poor year last year.
Yeah, no, for sure.
We'll run on in then to the 5th place team, down a spot on 57 points, the Buffalo Sabres, who, again, I get frustrated and annoyed by this team, but they are the team with the longest playoff drought. If we see that end this year, that would be an interesting conversation. But they played 4 games this week, and they started out with a loss against the Panthers 4-3, before coming back and beating the Flyers 5-2, the Canadiens 5-3, and as we talked about, that overtime loss to the Minnesota Wild 5-4 on ITV4. So, yeah, 5 points out of 8. A lot of teams have had that this week, but decent week, really.
Yeah, and look, they're 4 points off of a playoff spot at the moment. They are kind of one of the form teams in the league, looking really strong. And if this Buffalo team does snap their playoff drought, I mean, I think there'll be some conversations for Lindy Ruff for the Jack Adams Award, who was, in his second stint with the Sabres, where he was the head coach the last time they went to the playoffs. Yeah, I mean, we say the NHL as an old boys club. I mean, yeah, a lot of these coaches have been around a long time at this point. But yeah, look, they're looking really good. Tage Thompson's had a great week with 9 points in 4 games. They're looking strong, looking offensively solid. And yeah, we could potentially be talking about the Buffalo Sabres in the postseason, which is crazy talk.
Early days, yeah, and I think some of these other teams behind them will eventually overtake them as part of the course. I think the Sabres recently, they've been in this position several times and have fluffed it every time, which only adds to the memes and the joke of the team, really. They're very rarely just poor, if that makes sense, just outright poor. But yeah, yeah.
Always the bridesmaid.
We'll see. Yeah, absolutely. We'll move then on into the 6th place team in this division. Remaining in 6th place is the Toronto Maple Leafs, trying their best to make a comeback, and they're making heavy work of it. If you like watching long extended games with plenty of goals, and this might be your team at the moment. 4 games this week on the road. The Avalanche, they beat them in overtime 4-3. They then played a fairly horrible game against the Mammoth, losing 6-1. But then went on the road to Vegas, lost in overtime 6-5, and then won in overtime against the Jets 4-3. So 3 out of their 4 games went to overtime. None went to a shootout. But they come away with 5 points in 8 games.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, lots of overtime, lots of goals, lots of everything going on. Yeah, they've done terrifically to kind of keep them, try and claw themselves back. Yeah, they're pushing for it. We'll see if they get it. Um, yeah, that overtime win against the Avalanche was massive. But yeah, picking up those points where they matter at this particular point in time. Oliver Ekman-Larsson with 6 points in those 4 games as well, and Austin Matthews kind of finding his goal scoring touch again. Yeah, I'm kind of interested to see if they can make that push. They've got a little bit of a way to go yet, but yeah, we'll have to see.
See, they've got the quality to make this push, and they're not far behind the Bruins and the Sabres. I forgot their name, and we just talked about them. But I think this team does have the quality to make that push and become that wild card team. If not, maybe sneak into the 3rd place later down the line. They've just got too much quality for me, for them to miss out. And they're playing some decent hockey. If they can just tighten it up, their performances, I think they'll get there.
Yeah, potentially. We'll I will wait and see with bated breath.
Are they the next Atlantic team which I put my weight behind, and then they somehow go on a losing run? Almost akin to the praise I gave the Florida Panthers a few weeks ago, who now remain in 7th place, 53 points, record of 25-19-3, sort of -11 on the season. Aside from that 9-1 loss to the Hurricanes, which we touched on earlier, they have had a good week. They beat the Sabres 4-3 and the Capitals 4-2. Still not enough to get them in with a shout at the moment, but you also can't rule them out.
No, they're always going to be there or thereabouts. But yeah, nights like they had against the Hurricanes is just super rough. But picked up a couple of good wins against the Sabres and the Capitals. They're kind of trying to talk themselves into something. But at this point they are kind of cut adrift slightly from the playoff spots. But again, this is a team that get a complete free pass for me. They can do whatever they like this season. If they don't make the playoffs, cool. Yeah, not a problem whatsoever. Obviously, they've got the Sharks coming up at home, the Jets, the Wild, and the Blackhawks on the road. So a little bit of a Central Division stint there. And yeah, we'll see what happens with them. But I'm kind of starting to lose a little bit of faith in this Florida team making the playoffs. But yeah, we'll have to see how it kind of pans out in that stretch up to the Olympic break.
And the final team we'll talk about in this week's episode is the Ottawa Senators. Okay, so they're remaining 8th, bottom of this division, 50 points, so they're getting cut adrift a bit. But again, they're another team with some decent results. They beat the Canucks 2-1. They smashed the Rangers 8-4. And then lost to the Canadiens 6-5 in overtime. So what are your thoughts about the Senators?
Yeah, I think they've blown it. They're 11 points cut adrift now of the playoff spots in this division. Yeah, they've had a good week this week. They've had a lot of good goal scoring. Brady Tkachuk and Jake Sanderson, being really productive, and Cousins and Stutzler. But it's starting to look a little bit sort of too little, too late. They kind of hung in there for a while. And they've just had a few too many sort of bad weeks that has just sort of put them in a position to that has just sort of killed them off.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate because I quite like this team. I like watching them play. They always have entertaining games, but they just seem to be a bit unreliable and a bit chaotic energy. I think we've touched on that last week, didn't we, with all the off ice stuff? But they could do with some better goaltending, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Miro Leinen is not it.
No, it's not his all market either. I don't know.
I think he's more
But yeah,
it, but we'll see.
more it. What is it? It is not a retool. That's what it is not. Right. Any thoughts on Ottawa before we move on to sort
Nah,
of the summary of the week?
we'll wrap it up with our scorers, I think.
Yeah. So a bit of a weird week where not many players have scored a large amount of points, but leading out front is Tage Thompson with 9 points, Jack Eichel with 8. Top goal scorers being Zach Hyman, Mika Zibanejad, and Andrei Svechnikov with 4 goals. So again, not your usual top scorers there. I'm gonna give this a go at pronouncing this gentleman's name. I even have to check what team he plays on because I haven't even heard of him before. But the penalty box perspective award for most penalty minutes this week is Grubenkin for the Philadelphia Flyers with 19 minutes. I think he might be a Scott Saborin type for the Lightning that just gets signed up to
He's
throw
a
hands and then
young
departs for a bit.
He's a young forward. He's played kind of in and out of the lineup a fair amount this season. A decent kind of young guy, but yeah, kind of a bit more of a gritty forward. But yeah, him with 19 and Travis Konechny with 18. It's been quite a penalty heavy week in Philly.
Yeah. So you know him. That's good. I don't know every player, it seems. So we're going on to the season total points wise, and again, it's a top 3 as we've been seeing all year. McDavid on 83, McKinnon on 82, and then Celebrini a bit behind on 72. I don't think the top goal scorers have changed at all either. 36 for McKinnon, 30 for McDavid, and Baldy and Jason Robertson tied on 27. And then the penalty minutes on the season is still Nikita Zadorov with 117. But Arbor Xhekaj is coming up close now with 102.
Yeah, he's fighting his way up there, isn't he? He's gonna make it interesting. That's for sure. But yeah, Zadorov still out in front. And just before we wrap up and say goodbye, as we will do each week on this, we are gonna just hit one quick draft lottery simulator on Tankathon to see the top 3 picks in this year's draft if the lottery was done today. Oh my god. So, the top 3 picks, taking the first overall pick, moving up 4 spots, is the St. Louis Blues, with New Jersey moving up 6 spots to take the second overall pick, and Vancouver sliding 2 spots down into the third overall pick. That is an absolute disaster. Hate that. We might be retiring that segment shortly. But yeah, St. Louis Blues taking the first overall pick. That kills me inside.
Oh, I would not watch the draft.
No. Right, anything further from yourself, Nathaniel, or you happy for us to wrap this up?
No, let's wrap this up. A bit of a shorter episode, but maybe more concise.
Yeah. Right, guys, as always, you can find us on both Instagram and X at the Penalty Box Perspective. You can also get into contact with us on Gmail at penaltyboxperspective@gmail.com. If you've got any thoughts or feelings on the show and you want to get in touch with us, with anything in relation to that. Also, as well, if you want to give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, that is also absolutely massive for us and really helps us with the with the algorithms and getting to more people and everything along those lines. You can also listen to the podcast in audio format on YouTube at the Penalty Box Perspectives YouTube channel, and you can subscribe there as well. That always helps us out big time as well. And as always, guys, thanks for being with us.
And we'll see you next time. Take care.